So good morning, business owners. Today we will be talking about China, and at the end we'll be giving a recommendation on whether you should or should not do business in China. My name is Nicholas Fan, and I'm going over the culture in China. My partner Dominic Del Fiero will be going over the economy in China. Mohammed Al Buslad will be going over the transportation and tourism in China, and Cecilio Palacios will be going over typical business practices. So we are all part of a group that recommends whether or not businesses should do business in another country or not. So as I said, my name is Nicholas Fan, and I'll be going over the culture, eating customs, language, and religion, and I've lived in China for over 20 years, so I've experienced culture firsthand. So eating customs. All meals are usually family style in China, and the eldest person or the guest of honor usually sits at the front. And according to ChinaHighlights.com, it's important to eat after the eldest person has already taken the first bite. So it's also considered manners that when you're getting your own food, that you help the people next to you get their food. And when you're using your chopsticks, you should not wave them around, you shouldn't point them at people, and you shouldn't stab with your chopsticks. And when you're not using your chopsticks, you should put them on the side of your bowl and not inside your bowl, like facing up vertically. It's also important to pay attention to the people at the table, and don't be on your phone, don't look at a TV or any other electronics. So the official language in China is Mandarin, and 70% of the people in China either speak Mandarin or know Mandarin. And there are 7 different dialects in Chinese, the most common being Mandarin, followed by Shanghainese, Gan, Xiang, Hakka, Cantonese, and Min. So China uses characters instead of letters, and there are over 100,000 characters because each word has a character. And a literate person is said to know 3,000 to 6,000 characters. And if you were to take a Chinese class for like 3 years, you still wouldn't be able to read a Chinese newspaper from front to back with knowing every single word. Next is religion. So there is no official religion in China, but the government does recognize 5 religions. And the religions are Buddhism, Taoism, Islam, Catholicism, and Protestantism. And according to 2010 census, 52.2% of them said that they were not affiliated with any religion. 18% said that they were Buddhists. Less than 1% said they were Taoists. 1.8% said that they were Islamic. 5% said that they were Catholic. 4.3% said that they were Protestant. And 17.7% said that they followed folk beliefs and other religions. So a common folk belief in China is called feng shui. I don't know if you've heard it before, but it uses energy forces to harmonize an individual's home. So an example of good feng shui would be to have a water fountain in your front yard, and the flowing water represents flowing money. An example of bad feng shui would be if you can open your front door and walk directly straight out into your back door. That's bad feng shui because that represents money flowing in and out of your house really quickly. And you should not have your sink across from your stove, because that represents bad yin and yang, and that's like clashing of water and fire. So you can actually have feng shui masters come to your home and harmonize it to its best chi, so you don't have to worry about having bad feng shui. So next, my partner is going to be talking about the economy in China.
Thank you, Nick. My name is Dominic, and I have a PhD in economics with a strong focus in Asia. And today I'll be talking about China and the economy in China. So the 3 main things I'll be talking about today is the opportunity in China, the market in the past decade, and the drivers of the economy. So China is the second largest economy in the world. The annual GDP last year was 11.2 trillion US dollars, and that's right behind the US, which had 18.5 trillion US dollars. And as well, China is one of the BRIC countries, along with Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And those countries show the greatest, the most amount of economic growth. moving into my next point. So the economy in the last decade has been really strong. For the last 10 years, it's shown about 10% growth annually, and then the last couple of years, it has shown around 6 to 7. It's about halved, so it's like 6 to 7% growth. But also, wealth per capita has doubled in recent years. So we see this balancing out, and it really leads for like a stronger economy. As well, they've become less dependent on exports and more dependent on imports. So people are now starting to buy the products that they're making, or that the country is making. So they're not shipping out all their products. I'll get more into that later. So overall, the economy has been more dependent and self-sufficient within the past decade, and this has been really good. So the drivers of the economy, the biggest one is manufacturing, covering 45% of the economy. It's the largest and most diverse sector, and it employs over 130 million people. And some bad things about this, though, are historically it has driven down the currency. Because people were making these products, but they had to ship them out to other countries, so they weren't buying them. So it just drove down the currency and also allowed for companies to pay their employees lower wages. As well, services covers a large part of the economy with another 45%, and this has been the most booming sector in recent years. And services covers everything from tech to healthcare, really anything, you name it. And this has shown a really good per capita wealth increase, as well as healthy domestic consumption. So people are getting more wealth and they're buying more stuff within the economy, and they're really contributing to the economy. And finally, agriculture covers the last 10%, and they actually have one of the biggest agriculture industries in the world. At 300 million farmers, they are probably the biggest. As well, some cons about this is they're not using this to the full potential. They're actually pretty unproductive with the farmers that they have. And some say it's because of the weather, but South Korea is in the same climate, and they are 40% more productive with their farmers. So this is just one of the cons of China's agriculture industry. So to conclude today, I talked about opportunity in China, the market in the last decade, and the drivers of the economy. Next, we'll have my associate talk about tourism and travel.
Thank you, Donald. Hello everyone, my name is Mohammed. I am a frequent traveler and I've been to China many times in the past. Today I'm going to talk about the transportation and tourism in China. First I'll start with transportation. The massive size is not a disadvantage of investing in China, as many people think, because China has a great transportation services. The major mode that the country depends on is the trains. According to Maribel College, China is the third largest country. No, I'm sorry. China is the largest country in the world that has the largest railways. Now I'm going to move to tourism in China. China has a variety of places to attract the people. If you're interested in history, you can go to the Great Wall of China. According to The Sun, a British newspaper, it talked about the Great Wall of China was constructed by different leaders, by different Chinese leaders in about 2,000 years to be completely built. Or you can go to Terracotta Army Museum. There are 8,000 sculptured soldiers in the museum. This army was led by the first emperor of China. The museum was founded in 1974 accidentally by a group of farmers who were digging a well. Then the country made it a museum for the public. Or if you like nature, China has the third largest river in the world with a length of 3,915 miles that goes between cities and mountains. It is the most important river in China because it's the country's principal waterway. In conclusion, I talked about transportation and service and tourism in China, and my partner will conclude with the etiquette in China.
Thank you, Mohammed. So my name is Cecilio, and I've been doing business in China for over 20 years now. And some of the things you need to know before you do begin doing business in China are some of the business customs that are a little different that they do over there than what we're used to over here. So first and foremost, here when you meet somebody in a business situation, typically you shake their hand. In China, what is a little bit more done over there is either you're gonna have a slight bow or a slight nod. It's nothing dramatic, you're just gonna do it. And it's important to know this cultural difference because it shows that you're being respectful of their culture and that you're trying to make the effort on their part to learn what they're doing. But it's also important to know that they're probably gonna know that you normally shake hands. So just kind of watch and see how they take the lead and kind of follow after that. Next, I want to talk about the strong relationships. In China, relationships are very important when you're doing business because these relationships, once you have them, they're long-term. They're going to lead to future business opportunities in the future. But in order to get these, it's going to take a trusted partner that they already know to them to do business with you because they already want somebody that's going to know and that's going to be able to understand the culture and stuff like that. So that's why it's important to get a trusted partner before you do begin doing business in China. And gifts. So there's a fine line between gifts and bribery. So gifts are important in Chinese culture. So you can kind of show respect. From what I've heard, according to Business Insider, it's important that you find a gift that's typically from your country because a lot of the time they don't have time to travel, and if you bring something from your country, that's going to give them something that they normally wouldn't have access to there in China. But because of gifts are becoming a little bit they're right in the fine line. There's a lot of regulations being placed right now just because China's economy is booming and so many people are trying to get into that economy. So the benefits, once you do understand these customs, you're going to have respect for one another as partners. And you know, that might seem kind of like you're going to have respect for another, but a lot of the time you don't have respect for the people you do. You're kind of just there for, you know, the money purposes, but in China that changes greatly because once you do business with somebody, you're going to want to keep respecting them and getting those future business opportunities. And again, that strong relationship is what we're building up to over there because that's the network over there. Once you build strong relationships, other people are going to be able to see that you have a strong relationship with the people you're currently doing business with, and that's going to lead to them wanting to do business with you as well. And then the new culture means new business, it means a new environment, it means new customers for you. You're going to have a new audience to attend to, and that's going to definitely lead to new opportunities in what you're going to be able to do with your business. And again, according to Business Insider, strong relationships always lead to better business opportunities. And to conclude, I talked about the business customs in China and how they differ and why they're important to understand if you want to strive in China. So kind of to wrap it all up today, Nick talked about the culture with regards to eating customs, language, and religion. Dominic talked about the economy and what drives the economy over there. And Mohammed talked about tourism and transportation in China. And I talked about the business customs and why it's important. So as a group, after our research and our experience we have in the field, we've come to the conclusion that it is a good idea to do business in China, as long as you understand the language, what you're getting into, and if you have a strong partner that's going to be able to negotiate those meetings, because the language is going to be a big barrier. As Nick said, you know, the characters is going to be a big difference, especially in the language and what you're talking. So as long as you have a good idea of what you're going into and you're not just jumping into it without having a good solid plan, we believe it's a strong idea to do business in China. Thank you. Any questions?